The transfer portal in college football continues to churn. You knew it would be like this. We talked about it on previous shows. It's not going to be that All-American jumping in the portal, making a splash and changing the outlook for your roster, but it's the depth pieces. It's that guy you're going to need in November. It's going to be that defensive lineman that gives you that extra push when it comes to the back half of the season. We'll talk about it right now. We're glad to have y'all here, man. Welcome into the Hard Count, the People's College Football Show. It is Thursday, April 18th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. Going to make it a great one. I talked about the transfer portal. Going to break down some of the latest movements within the portal that's happened really over the last couple of hours, so lock in for that. Also, who needs what in the portal? We did that exercise yesterday for a couple of teams. I got 4 more that I want us to unpack together, because this is a special time of the year where if you need to tinker with that roster just a little bit more, you maybe need to get 5% better, 10% better, this is your chance to do it. I think a couple of these teams will absolutely be active when it comes to what they're looking for this portal cycle. Also, spring games. We had our first buffet last Saturday. We got another buffet this upcoming Saturday. It's Florida State. It's Texas. We got Texas A&M playing some ball. A lot of things to watch within this upcoming Saturday. What specifically should we be watching for in the second full weekend of spring games? We'll talk about that. Cam Ward, if you watch Miami spring game, is absolutely slicing and dicing all over the field. What makes it work at Miami? Because I'm telling you, what we saw in that spring game, that was not going to be a thing where it's like, oh, nice spring game for Cam Ward. I wonder if that'll translate. I'm promising you right now, it will translate, and we'll break down exactly why that is. We love the college football headlines and gossip part of what this ecosystem is at this point during the season, at this point in April, but we're going to actually talk some college football, actually talk some ball. Who would have thought? Also, Josh Newberg joining the show here in give or take 40-ish minutes. We'll break down the latest when it comes to the the recruiting scene when it comes to the high school level, the dominoes that are falling on the quarterback side of things. You got Matt Zoller setting things off, picking Missouri. You got Georgia acting. You got Julian Lewis taking visits. Where do things stand right now in 2025? We'll break that down, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some other things I got on my mind when it comes to the portal a little bit later in the show. Glad to have y'all here. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're just now finding us, this is pretty much what we do every single day on this show. We're live 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as we are right now, 11 a.m. Eastern. But when I say every single day, it's like it's college football. It's only college football, and it's the way that you want college football talked about is what we do here. So we appreciate y'all being a part of this. Making sure you're subscribed is the best way to be a part of this family. So let's keep a good thing going, man. The transfer portal continues to show no mercy. What is the latest movement when it comes to the current status of the transfer portal? Got a couple of names on the move. Penny Boone, running back who was most recently at Louisville. He is headed to the transfer portal. If that name sounds familiar and you're like, wait a second, wasn't he just in the transfer portal in that first window? He absolutely was. He tore it up at Toledo last year, y'all. Over 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, was the offensive player of the year on the MAC. He was first team all Wednesday. The buzz around him right now is that he is going to be targeted by some SEC schools. Now remember, there's a couple of SEC schools that are in the mix here for a running back. Tennessee, no longer going to be getting the visit from Damien Martinez. I would watch them closely when it comes to Penny Boone. He is, again, of course, leaving Louisville and will hit the transfer portal. Cormani McClain, as we were prepping for this show, had not yet entered the transfer portal. That's very important to make sure we're all aligned there. His name is not officially in the portal. Now, I was told that door is still open for him. He may end up not going into the portal, just full disclaimer. But, again, he has got an announcement out there that he intends to enter. A school that I would watch for him is USF. We talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show. But USF currently has a quarterbacks coach by the name of DeMarcus Van Dyke, DVD. And the reason why that's significant, DVD was the primary recruiter for Cormani McClain at a high school when he committed to Miami. DVD was at Miami, brought him to Miami, or at least got him a commitment to Miami before he ended up flipping and going to Colorado. But the point remains the same here. We say this a lot when it comes to the transfer portal. Watch relationships, watch hometown, and being back in the home state of Florida and being with a person that he had previously committed to at Miami would make a lot of sense. So again, he's not officially in the portal. There's still that intends to enter tag as we're sitting here on a Thursday morning, 10:11 a.m. Central Time. But USF, the school that I would watch most closely for him there. Speaking of updates, the top transfer portal wide receiver is KeAndre Lambert Smith. We've talked about him a lot on this show since this whole portal cycle got rolling. I told you yesterday, West Virginia was my pick early for him. It seems as though they're starting to fade. What I've been told is it is a 4-team race for KeAndre Lambert Smith. He's going to visit Auburn. He's going to visit Texas A&M. The other 2 schools in the mix, I'm being told, are Colorado and USC. So Auburn and A&M getting some visits. You'd have to believe they're going to push hard to land a commitment at some point this weekend, but I'm just saying, I'm hearing it's a 4-team race. So West Virginia, not so sure where they stand right now, but those 4 teams are the ones to watch. Auburn is really intriguing to me there for him. We'll talk about Auburn a little bit later in the show, but if they could land a KeAndre Lambert Smith to go with a Cam Coleman and help Peyton Thorne out, I think that'd be a match made in heaven. Really intriguing match there. So we'll see what happens with KLS. Damien Martinez, arguably the top player available right now in the transfer portal, rushed for over 2,000 yards in his 2 years at Oregon State. He is no longer visiting Tennessee. Okay? Make sure we're clear on that. Yesterday on the live show, I told you, he's visiting Tennessee since we got off the air, and since we got on the air yesterday, he is no longer visiting there. The school that I'm being told is the massive betting favorite is Miami. Still some other schools in the mix. Arizona, I believe, is in the mix. Mississippi State is also in the mix. But I'm being told Miami is the school that far and away right now is the lead dog in the clubhouse. Not a done deal. Not saying he's a lock, but I'm saying if you were placing a bet in Vegas, there would be very bad odds on Miami because you wouldn't make much money putting anything down on that. Another running back in the portal that went in this morning is Colorado running back Alton McCaskill. Alton McCaskill previously was at Houston before Colorado. He was the AAC Rookie of the Year over there. Ran for almost 1,000 yards as a freshman, had 16 touchdowns. I would watch the schools that are in the Damien Martinez sweepstakes right now because, as I mentioned, I think he's going to Miami. Damien Martinez, that is. I'd be curious to see who else is in the market for Alton McCaskill if they don't land Damien Martinez. I would watch Mississippi State. I would watch in Arizona. Very curious to see how that thing formulates for him. That running back market is starting to fill up a little bit more between McCaskill, Dallin Hayden, Damien Martinez. There's going to be some backs there, so keep an eye on that. 2 years of eligibility remaining for Alton McCaskill. Colorado linebacker Demoy Kennedy is entering the transfer portal. He started his career at Alabama. Dude can play some ball now. He was a former top 40 recruit when he came out of high school. He's going to have an elevated market. We talked about it when this whole thing opened. The transfer portal is in high demand right now for linebackers. So you're a former high-profile recruit that started at Alabama for a period of time, or started your career at Alabama, for a period of time. There's going to be a demand. So I'm curious to see if it's an SEC school in the mix for him, if it's another power conference school. Bottom line, I think it's a power conference school that's going to go ahead and try and land Demoy Kennedy's services. This was a big one that happened this morning. Michigan State defensive lineman, we told you now, defensive linemen, they're like gold in the transfer portal. Simeon Barrow Jr., 6'3", 296 pounds, 110 career tackles, 18.5 tackles for a loss, 10.5 sacks. Dude can play some ball, okay? Now, Georgia and LSU, from what I'm being told, are expected to push hard for his services. Being able to stop the run. Now, again, I think there's a lot of schools that could court a Simeon Barrow, but those are just a couple that I'm being told are going to push hard for him. But you got that size, you got that experience. I believe he's going in as a grad transfer, so he's played a lot of football. Keep an eye on his demand because it will be high. There will be a lot of schools vying for his services. Simeon Barrow Jr. in the transfer portal. Appreciate everybody dialed in right now. Appreciate everyone that is tuned in live. Hey, if you're listening on podcast, we appreciate you doing so. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast feed as well and rated and reviewed and all that stuff. We appreciate you so much for that. I just mentioned the spring transfer portal names that we're watching. Some names already in there, some names that have announced they've intended to enter. So with that being the case, that's kind of the supply. Who's in demand when it comes to the transfer portal? Who needs what? Volume 2. We're about to get after it here. Auburn, a school that I'm watching very closely this portal cycle. I expect them to be active. I would love to see Auburn go out and land themselves an experienced pass catcher. Experience is the key word there, okay? Because you can go out and land another young talent. You got a lot of that, quite frankly, honestly, in this 2024 cycle. Cam Coleman, we know what he's going to be. We think he's going to be a transformer. Last year, Auburn did not have a receiver, or a pass catcher for that matter, go over 500 yards. Now, some of that's on Peyton Thorne. Some of that's on the offense still kind of finding their footing overall with the quarterback that missed all of spring practice. Some of that's on that, that receiving core. Bottom line, they got to get better there. Their tight end, Rivaldo Fairweather, is put together like an action figure. I expect him to be phenomenal this season. He was their leading receiver a season ago, but you got to have something on the perimeter to threaten defenses, especially in this Hugh Freeze offense with how they want to put strain on the edges of a defense. That has to be the case. So it would serve a couple of purposes if you bring in KeAndre Lambert Smith, who, again, is visiting Auburn this weekend. If you can bring someone in with experience of his nature, you take attention off of Cam Coleman. You can't just double the freshman and try and put all the pressure on him to make plays. No, you spread it out a little bit. Also, you bring in somebody, like I said, a experienced pass catcher would help mentor Cam Coleman. Because I'll say this, I think it's probably just a tricky position, period, to be the youngest guy in the room and the most talented guy in the room. Now, depending on who they bring in there, he still may be the most talented guy in the room, but if you bring someone in who has some skins on the wall, they can sort of take Cam Coleman under their wing, help his progress. Hey, Cam, here's how we watch film. Hey, Cam, here's what we do after practice to get extra work. Here are the things that are necessary for you to have success at the college level. Now, he's going to have success either way, but I'm telling you, having a big brother of sorts in that receiver room with him who's played at a high level and has proven he can ball, I think that would go a long way for Cam Coleman. Last thing here, someone to help Peyton Thorne. That's massive. We talk a lot about his progress, and I think the offense will be much improved because of Hugh Freeze running the show and all the things he's going to do from that front and because of the confidence for Peyton Thorne. But the more answers you give your quarterback, the more confident he is going into a game, and the better he should feel within the flow of a game, knowing, hey, so-and-so's kind of having trouble getting going. They're doing a great job taking away my first option. I'm going to go to my second option. I'm going to go to our other receiver. So more answers, more options. Would love to see Auburn go and grab an experienced pass catcher on that front. Miami, they've already been active this portal cycle. They already went out and got Cam Ward, who's going to be a game changer for them, who we'll talk a little bit more about here later in the show. I would love to see them add some more balance to this offense because last year they were really effective in being balanced. I mean, they ran the ball at like 5 yards a carry as a team, but you lose your leading rusher in Henry Parrish, ran for 625 yards in 2023. Yes, you bring back Mark Fletcher, but I think depth is going to be crucial for them to have the kind of season they want to have, especially at that running back position. I've been pounding the drum here for Damien Martinez for a little bit. That makes all the sense in the world to me because if you add someone who is a legitimate threat in the backfield and you have depth there with that young buck in Fletcher, you're able to then really put defenses in a bind because at that point, you can't stack the box because of what Cam Ward's going to do pushing the ball downfield. That's first. Second, if you're not able to stack the box, well, then we got a battering ram in a Damien Martinez to be able to make you pay and to be able to keep that number right around 5 yards a carry. So at that point, you're between a rock and a hard place as a defense. I think that would make for some really, really potent offensive games for Miami going into 2024. Oklahoma, it's no secret, man. The good folks in Norman, they are looking high and low for offensive linemen. Now, that's not me telling you that you don't trust Bill Bedenbaugh. You do. But at the same time, you have a year one quarterback in the most vicious conference in college football that is the SEC. You cannot be one-dimensional. You got to, one, protect him as much as possible and give him a little bit of security when he drops back there. But at the same time, you got to make sure that defenses understand, hey, we can move the line of scrimmage if we choose to do so. And I'm not saying you got to be dominant, but I think you have to provide some insurance and provide some security for your first-year quarterback in the most difficult conference in all of America. So I expect them to be aggressive. They're replacing essentially the entire offensive line. Not saying they don't have some pieces, but I am saying that I think you would like to go out and grab a couple of guys to try and build that fortress a little bit more around your quarterback. Last team to talk about here, USC. The defensive line is where I would look most closely if I'm a Trojan fan. And everyone's looking for defensive linemen, man. We talked about two other teams yesterday in Texas and Oregon that are both probably going to be in the market for some defensive tackles. USC, I'll say this, I think along with some of those other schools, they're willing to play ball on the NIL front. But the Big Ten is the real reason why you have to go out and add some Big Ten-sized defensive linemen, right? Like Bear Alexander's great, but if Bear Alexander's getting double-teamed every other game, like we got problems. So when you look at USC and you look at their approach to this thing, it's going to take the proper tools to be successful on the defensive line in 2024. Like the Big Ten is not a small job to undertake. You can't go out there with a saw and a hammer and expect to fix the whole thing up. Like it's going to take some real deal power tools. It's going to take some extra juice in the transfer portal to be able to withstand the duration of a season in the Big Ten. And then I'm sure for USC, their aspirations past the regular season. Eric Henderson is the not-so-secret weapon for USC in recruiting this position. We've already seen the impact he's had at the high school level, being able to flip Justice Terry from Georgia to USC. If you're a USC fan, you're hoping and praying that sticks all the way till signing day. But being able to say, hey, listen, I coached Aaron Donald. Yeah, one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time. You want to come play for me? Yeah, I thought so. Like, that's a nice pitch to be able to make. Watch USC and how they recruit the defensive line when it comes to the transfer portal. It's going to be fun to watch, man. The transfer portal is continuing to churn, continuing to slowly but surely, big names popping up in there. I'm telling you, man, Simeon Barrow, he is going to be very, very highly sought after. We'll talk about him, of course, moving forward throughout this show. So I spoke about Miami a little bit at the top of this thing in terms of their transfer portal needs. Everyone that watched any spring football last weekend or even kind of kept their ear close to the ground when it comes to spring football, you saw Cam Ward just playing darts out there. And that was right in line with what we had heard coming out of Coral Gables with how he had looked during spring practice. But to see it translate to a game when it's 11 on 11, a little bit more buzz in the atmosphere because it's a game-like scenario, that's super encouraging. And it should be encouraging. But I want us to actually talk some football right now and tell you why this is going to work and why it's not just a flash in a pan and he was able to take advantage of a defense he's played against for 15 practices. We'll talk about that right now. Make sure you're subscribed. We've put out the call to action a couple times in this live show. We're moving forward headfirst into spring football games, into this transfer portal window. We got games right around the corner. I promise you, media days will be here before you know it. The preview magazines, they'll be out in a minute. We want y'all dialed in here so we don't have to get ready. You stay ready, don't have to get ready. Best way to stay ready, being subscribed right here to this platform, the On3 YouTube channel, and this show, The Hard Count. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button for us. Here's what this offense wants to do under Shannon Dawson. We could talk about all the verbiage and all the things like that, but let's just put it down into the most basic bullet points, what this offense wants to do. One, they want to get the ball to playmakers in space. Sounds pretty straightforward. What that's going to look like, though, you saw this in the spring game. Cam Ward catching the football, he knows where he's going right away. We're getting the ball out on a bubble screen. We're getting the ball out on a tunnel screen. We're getting it out to someone who is really fast, who's really shifty. Think Xavier Restrepo, who's, shift team certified. JoJo Trader snapped a little bit in that spring game. You want them to have a chance to make somebody miss, and we go. Right? We're getting north and south. We're not wasting too much time. The principle that I would imagine Shannon Dawson has here, as many offensive coordinators do, we want to make defensive backs tackle us. Because you put a DB in space, man, God bless them, DBs are good at a lot of things. Tackling, not really one of those attributes that you see most highly rated when you go and look down the sliders on Madden or NCAA 25, CFB 25, when you play that game. Second thing they want to do, yes, they want to get the ball out in space. Yes, they kind of have this air raid perception to them, but make no mistake, Shannon Dawson now, he wants to run the football. He wants to get north and south. He wants to be a power run football team. That's one of the reasons why I think Damien Martinez is such a great fit for this offense, because of the way that he runs the football. They want to apply pressure within the trenches. And we'll see how this thing shakes out in the fall, but Miami right now has those big boys up front offensively to be able to play this kind of football. And I don't think that's coincidental. I don't think it's just an accident that Mario Cristobal comes from the line of scrimmage as a player, and so he is making sure that he has the proper ingredients to move the line of scrimmage when it comes to fall Saturdays. So that's a big part of what they do offensively as well. And you do those two things, you get the ball out in space, you pound the rock. What happens is the defense starts to overcompensate. Hey, I'm going to probably trigger a little bit more quickly on the run when I see that guard pull. That's my key. I'm attacking it right now. Hey, I'm going to probably fly out a little bit more quickly to that bubble screen because I'm tired of us having to go make a tackle at 6-7 yards and be set up in a 3rd and 2, 2nd and 3 kind of situation. So what happens then, when they start crowding the box, when they start getting a little bit aggressive, handing the cookie jar, then they start taking shots. Then it's the frequent flyer miles that start taking place out there for Cam Ward and company. Take shots, make sure that you capitalize on that. And the vibes are very high in Coral Gables if that's the case. So why I think Cam Ward is going to work so effectively, like you saw him in that spring game when it comes to them actually playing games, I think that he's going to bring a little bit more consistency to that quarterback position. And the numbers are, I don't think numbers tell the whole story when you look at a quarterback's performance. You look at him and Tyler Van Dyke, they actually had a pretty similar completion percentage between the two of them. But Cam Ward had right around the same completion percentage with 100 or so more attempts than TVD. Now, full disclaimer, I'm not dunking on TVD here. I think TVD actually is going to have a lot of success at Wisconsin. But I do think with Cam Ward, his ability to consistently place the football is going to be a difference maker. Talking to folks over at Miami, they feel confident in his ability to get the ball to guys with the proper placement to allow them to make plays after the catch. All that's to say, they're very excited about him, and that's important based on the first thing that I mentioned, being consistent in those quick game plays and those quick throws where you get it out on the perimeter and let your receivers work. That's huge because this offense builds off of itself. All three of those things I mentioned, get the ball to playmakers in space, run the ball, take shots. You can't take shots if you don't have those first two pieces of that equation working properly. Now, how do they work properly? If you hit on the first part of that thing with being able to complete those easy gimme throws, which are, I say easy, it's supposed to be easy when it comes to the yardage required to throw that football, but, I mean, it's a lot of catch, rock, throw. Sometimes you don't have the laces. Sometimes you are having a muddy picture with what's going on the perimeter with how much blocking you're getting. Like, the bottom line here is the offense builds off of itself. I think Cam Ward is going to do a really good job winning on the quick game side of things here for Miami. The other part of this, when you have that quick game dialed in, and I think they'll run the football, so that doesn't really pertain so much to Cam Ward, I think he has a lot of ability, based on what we've seen from him over the course of his career, to capitalize when those deep shots are there. Like Cam Ward, man, I don't think he's going to leave money on the table when you have those defenses overcompensate and crowd too much to the perimeter or crowd too much to the line of scrimmage. He's going to make you pay. Last year, he was 40% on his deep passes, 40% as a completion percentage, period. Doesn't sound great. 40% when it comes to pushing the ball over 20 yards. It's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. So all that's to say, when there's money to be made, he's going to make it when it comes to that deep pass. Now, the major differentiator for me with him is his ability to ad-lib. Cam Ward, I think he had like 8 rushing touchdowns last year at Washington State. He's not necessarily a running quarterback. Like, he can hurt you with his legs if you just fall asleep at the wheel and don't give him the proper attention. 100% true. But Cam Ward is someone who will run to pass. You saw it a little bit in the spring game. Just full transparency, some of those shovel passes he was making where the ball is floating in the air gave me a little bit of anxiety if I'm the offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson. Like, no, don't leave that ball hanging in the air for so long. But at the end of the day here, when you have a quarterback that can breathe second life into a play, it's hard to prepare for. You can do the scramble drill all you want during the week if you're a defense. You can put somebody else at quarterback to try and simulate what he does back there. But that's very different doing that on a Wednesday during practice than being out there in front of however many thousand fans and he breaks contain and it's kind of just like a fire drill and he finds someone. Also, we talk about this with other quarterbacks across college football. I think Tennessee's a great example. Whenever he breaks contain, that means as a defensive back, you have to cover that receiver for that much longer. And God bless him, like, you're not going to cover Xavier Restrepo for 5 seconds. Maybe for 3, maybe for 3.5, 4 on a good day. But, like, if he breaks out of the pocket, and we saw this during the spring game, breaks out of the pocket, I think he was fading towards the right sideline. Restrepo gets off of his man-to-man coverage, comes back to the football, makes a great catch. Like, that's going to be something that defenses have to consistently deal with when they try and defend Cam Ward. Now, last thing. This is not something that shows up on tape. This is not something that you're going to watch and see him do at his pro day when it comes time for that. Like, Cam Ward, from talking to people close to Miami, has a little bit of that it factor. Cam Ward is what we would call an alpha. Now, alphas don't have to say they're alphas. Alphas don't walk in there and puff out their chest and let you know, hey, I'm the alpha. Alphas walk in the door, and by how they operate, by their demeanor, by their leadership, they demand respect. And from everything I've heard, that's who Cam Ward has been since he's arrived at Coral Gables. And not in a way where he's saying, hey, listen, I'm the man, but it's more so a thing of, hey, something didn't go right during practice. He's bringing people into the film room with him. hey, we're talking about something. We're figuring out why this didn't work. He's taking the lineman out to eat. He's talking a little bit of trash during practice when he throws that completion, letting you know, hey, listen, the way that I operate here, we're going to win some ball games. The way that I operate, we're not losing games like this, all right? So, and that's not, again, I'm not throwing shade at anybody that played quarterback at Miami previously, but I think that's new in Coral Gables. And I'll say this too. The quarterback and the presence they possess in the huddle, it instills confidence into the other 10 guys that are on the field with them. Like, I've played with quarterbacks that command the huddle. I've played with quarterbacks that are on the not so commanding side of things. And I promise you, the way that it feels walking out there and lining up and knowing that you got a dude who can make something happen for you and who is in control of the game and in control of his emotions, in control of the offense, that does wonders for a team. Does wonders for what you do production-wise. Again, it's hard to quantify. You can't really pick it out when you watch it at the combine, but the emotional and competitive makeup of Cam Ward, everything we're hearing out of Miami is off the charts. And that matters, and I think it's going to matter for them in 2024. So the way they operate the offense, the way that it builds off itself, he's going to be accurate in the short game. He's going to be efficient in the deep game. Miami's going to score some points here. I think they got to land a running back in the portal here to really set that thing off, but we'll see, man. I'd love to see them add a receiver too, full disclaimer, but overall, I think Miami's in a very exciting position and in uncharted territory with Cam Ward entering into the fold. Everybody I've talked to in the building, third parties, they say, hey, this guy's a dog. This guy's a player. So if you're a Miami fan, you fired up. Vibes can, will, and should be high as we sit here in April. And vibes should be high everywhere in April, man, if we're just going to keep it a buck. Like, you haven't lost a game. You better not lose spring practice. You better drink all the Kool-Aid you can because that's what spring practice is for. So let's keep it moving here. We were very fortunate to chop it up with that man, Josh Newberg, talking about the 2025 quarterback dominoes. Because remember, you got Matt Zollers, who was he going to go to Georgia? That was kind of a thought for a second. He ends up committing to Missouri. So Georgia, they react. They get themselves a quarterback. And then Julian Lewis, if you're a Georgia fan, you're saying, well, are we still going to get Julian Lewis? If you're a USC fan, are you exhaling? So we covered a myriad of topics, but we really focused on the current status of the 2025 quarterback class and the dominoes that are continuing to fall. And we also explored some alternate realities of some dominoes that maybe will fall. So make sure you're subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel. Josh Newberg appearing on the Wilt Fong Whip Around. He hosts the Inside Scoop. Phillip Dukes dropping the 5-star flex. Like there's a lot of content on that channel to keep you up for all recruiting all year round. Dial in there. But without further ado, here's the conversation with Josh Newberg talking 25 quarterback dominoes. Josh Newberg and I back at the desk. I guess National Signing Day, baby.
It feels great to be back at the desk.
Recruiting kind of picking up a little bit more, gaining some traction. 2024 is signed, sealed, delivered. Some of those guys already on campus from spring games from this past weekend. What do you say we talk a little bit about the quarterback dominoes, Josh, for 2025? Matt Zollers starting us off hot. Is he going to Georgia? No, goes to Missouri. And the dominoes are in full effect now. What did that set off?
Yeah, dominoes are falling. And like you said, the guys that we're talking about right now will be on campus participating in spring ball next year at this time. You talked about Matt Zollers. Matt Zollers out of Pennsylvania, top 10 quarterback on the On3 industry rankings, picked Missouri, and that kind of got the dominoes falling because Mizzou maybe wasn't supposed to land Matt Zollers. I think most experts expected it to be Georgia when they started turning up the heat. Penn State also involved there, but he picks Missouri, which means Georgia now needs a quarterback. Georgia goes out and lands Ryan Montgomery yesterday. You guys probably heard all about this. Georgia gets their guy in Ryan Montgomery out of Findlay, Ohio, but they really only started turning the heat up for him about 3 weeks ago. So that meant UF in South Carolina, who had been recruiting Ryan Montgomery for the better part of 6 to 8 months, it thought it was going to come down to either one of those teams. Now both of those teams are now searching for another quarterback. Now the dominoes just keep on falling because Keelan Russell, who's committed to SMU early, his recruitment's heating up. The Gators want to flip him. So there you go. That's how the dominoes kind of build on themselves.
Things are moving and shaking and evolving, and we still got a long way to go till that first signing period. And I think for Georgia fans, The question mark that remains is, okay, are we all done at quarterback? Because Julian Lewis, he's committed to USC. He's committed, but also taking visits. And so nobody's like projecting, I'm not projecting a flip at this point. I mean, I'm going to get more information, obviously, and see how this thing trends. But for a Georgia fan, is it a thing where they're set now with Ryan Montgomery? Or is it like, okay, we got one in the hand. Let's go out and grab one more quarterback in Julian Lewis. Are they still pushing to land him, you think?
So I think USC fans can kind of take a little breather of relief with Ryan Montgomery going to Georgia. Yes, I talked to Rusty Mansell of Dogs HQ. He fully believes that they're only going to take one. They already have Jared Curtis, the number 3 quarterback in the 2026 class, committed. So they're locked in with 2 quarterbacks for the next 2 years in recruiting. I do not expect them to continue to pursue Juju Lewis, but that means Auburn, Colorado, they start feeling a little bit better about their position in the Julian Lewis sweepstakes. And, you know, USC, like I said, they have to feel better because their probably main competition heading into this week was Georgia. Now Juju Lewis was back on campus at USC. I'm feeling good, at least of where he stands right now. But Lewis is planning to take official visits. His last official visit in June is going to be to Colorado. I would watch them. I would watch Auburn at this point. But USC still standing firm with where they are with Julian Lewis's commitment.
Well, you mentioned a couple of schools there, Auburn, Colorado. Let's say that Julian Lewis sticks with USC. The Dogs obviously are a little bit further out of this thing, like we just talked about a second ago. Who needs a quarterback the most? Like, let's say he sticks with USC. Where does that leave Auburn? Where does that leave a school like Colorado? Florida,
right.
South Carolina, you mentioned, like, what's going on here?
Lane Kiffin is out there hunting for a quarterback. South Carolina, like we said. Texas, they got Keelan Russell, who Florida is also recruiting. Keelan Russell. He's an interesting name. Right now, he's sitting at number 10. I believe he's having a great offseason. I could see him moving up within that top 10, maybe as high as 6, 7 in the quarterback rankings. But he committed to SMU early. Texas has him on campus this weekend for their spring game. They have KJ Lacey committed to them as well. KJ Lacey talking a little bit with Auburn, talking a little bit with Alabama. KJ Lacey maybe Ole Miss, you could see him hunting. But Keelan Russell is one of those names that grabbed a spot early at SMU, and his recruitment now is blowing up. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of value in him, especially as these QB dominoes kind of fall, and we see teams like Auburn, like UF, like South Carolina still out there searching. So, yeah, the spatula's out, as Steve Wiltfong would say. I mean, Ole Miss, they got Deuce Knight right there, the number 4 ranked quarterback in America, committed to Notre Dame, is right there in the state of Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss needs a quarterback. They're going to be recruiting Deuce Knight all the way to the end. I mean, the dominoes, even the ones that we think are set, are not set.
And we've seen, too, with Notre Dame, going back to Deuce Knight, you get those early commitments when the weather's nice in South Bend and, you're getting some spring vibes out there, and then it gets a little bit colder, as it does in a place like Indiana, and it's a little bit more difficult to hang on to those recruits just based on what we've seen over the course of the last couple of cycles. Now, I want to flip that alternate reality on its head. Let's say Julian Lewis flips to somewhere else. Who needs him the most in your mind?
Colorado with everything that's going on, with Coach Prime's ability to often go out and snipe a 5-star here or there. I mean, landing the number 2 quarterback in America, flipping him from USC. With Shedeur Sanders leaving, there's a clear pathway. I'm not saying Julian Lewis is going to start as a freshman, but if you want to compete for the starting job at any of the schools he's looking at, I think Colorado probably has the easiest path to playing time with Shedeur leaving. But, Auburn, think about what they signed at wide receiver last year and coupling that with Julian Lewis. I mean, your future on offense is virtually set. So I think it would be big for anybody that lands him, but specifically Auburn and Colorado.
I can already hear the comment section right now, Josh, saying, you guys always talk about Juju flipping. He's sticking with USC. Stop putting that on us. Stop predicting that. We're not predicting it. We're exploring the alternate realities of the dominoes. And here's the thing, too, Josh. If Julian Lewis, for whatever reason, does end up inking with a school that's not USC, we talked about this another time off the air, Lincoln Riley's okay. Lincoln Riley's going to get a quarterback. Husan Longstreet is committed to Texas A&M. What was his impact on the dominoes when he ended up giving a verbal to the Aggies in that Hayes-Fawcett graphic draw.
Yeah, again, Houston Longstreet commits to the Aggies. Who does that impact? It impacts Oregon. So now what do I think Oregon's going to do? I think they're going to go after Bear Bachmeier, who's committed to Stanford, and flip him. He's the number 16 rated quarterback. Oregon already has Achilles Smith Jr. A lot of people know that name. They're good with Achilles Smith. I don't think anything's changing there. Oregon just wants 2 in this cycle. So look for them, because they missed out on Houston Longstreet, to go flip Bear Bachmeier from Stanford. Now we got to see if that happens. But Houston Longstreet also, I thought at one point, could very well have ended up at Auburn. If he ends up at Auburn, then that takes them out of the Julian Lewis sweepstakes and kind of makes them no longer a factor for him. So all these things kind of add up, and you see where they end up falling. It wasn't exactly how I expected it to go, but I can still see if this happens, then that happens. If that happens, then this happens.
It's like the most complex math equation, and we're just kind of pulling the different levers and seeing what would happen if this domino falls and that domino falls. Josh, we've explored a lot of things. Any other dominoes that you think are relevant to what we're talking about right now in this 2025 class at the quarterback position?
Well, I'd keep an eye on Deuce Knight, like I said, because Notre Dame doesn't like their commitments to take visits. To this point, Deuce Knight has not taken a visit, but he has gone on record a couple times and said that he talks to programs like Ole Miss, Alabama, every day. Now, if you're talking to somebody every day, at some point, you're going to agree to go on their campus and talk to them face-to-face. So we got to see what happens there. I think Antoine Hill out of the state of Georgia, could he become a factor with Florida or South Carolina, because now they both need a quarterback? And if Keelan Russell is going to stay in state, remember, he's at Duncanville High School.
Yeah,
there's an incentive there, not just to get a great quarterback, but his teammate is DeCorian Moore, the number 1 wide receiver in America. And right now, Texas is also trying to flip him. So Keelan Russell coming off the board to Texas really hurts a program like a Florida who doesn't have a quarterback. Now Texas potentially has 2 quarterbacks. So
a little 2-for-1 action.
A little 2-for-1. And then we also, hey, these guys haven't even played their senior year yet. So maybe some of these coaches are saying, hey, I just want to hold off right now. Hey, we didn't get our first or second tier quarterback on the board, but hey, maybe somebody really emerges in their senior year and we pounce on him. So there's a lot in play. And like you said, to me, it resembles almost a game of musical chairs.
Yeah.
In the end, who has a seat and who doesn't.
100%, man. That music's still playing for right now, but we're getting closer and closer. The volume's not turning down just yet, but we know when it comes time for December, got to have a chair.
Yeah.
Josh, at some point in the near future, we got a whiteboard that's off camera right now in our studio. Feels appropriate to maybe chalk
We're
going to
drag it in. We're going to drag it in. I'm going to do my thing up on the whiteboard, and it'll all make 0 sense.
Phenomenal. I can't wait. Josh Newberg, best in the business, the engine behind the On3 Recruits channel, Inside Scoop, dropping multiple times a week. Josh, I think we got some more action on the horizon in 2025, so we'll do this again soon.
Definitely.
Josh Newberg, bringing the juice as always, man. I'm telling y'all, make sure you're subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel. The Inside Scoop dropping multiple times a week. Will Fung whip around on there now, 5-star flex. To keep you in the know for all things recruiting, subscribe to that channel because we got some more dominoes falling, it sounds like, before we get to National Signing Day. I'm really curious about Julian Lewis, man. I really am. I understand that he's committed to USC. I am not predicting a flip, but I am seeing some visits being taken, and I'll leave it at that. So Colorado, in the mix for Julian Lewis, it sounds like, are pushing hard to get Julian Lewis to flip his commitment from USC to Colorado. And we had a segment yesterday talking about Shiloh Sanders and his Instagram story, where he posted, hey, defensive transfers, DM me. Offensive transfers, DM my brother Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, of course, the quarterback at Colorado, Shiloh Sanders, the safety at Colorado, both sons of Deion Sanders. And, my mentions just filled up. just filled up. And God bless you for it. I'm glad that y'all are watching the show, and we appreciate y'all having an opinion on what we're talking about here. That's what this is about. But the response we got was amplified because Luther Burden, the best player on Missouri's roster, tweeted out, transfers, DM me. And so immediately it's like, hey, is this poor execution? Hey, stand on business here. Talk about this. What do you think about this? Is Missouri not a good football team now? Or are they lacking in execution organization? And it's just like it filled up the mentions. So I feel like it's probably best for us to address that right now together. Again, first, thank you for being involved here. We appreciate you having an opinion. That's what this thing is about, all right? So there's nothing personal here. We're just talking college football, so we appreciate y'all being a part of that. Second, is it poor execution still? Yeah. I think it is. Again, I would not go about it that way personally. Like, I have nothing wrong, or there's nothing wrong with tweeting out transfers, DM me, hey, if you want to play here, DM me. I'm all about that. But if that's your strategy, I wouldn't go that way. I don't think that's the best way forward. I don't think that's the most efficient way forward. Now, I have to believe, based on, again, I'm speculating here based on what I can tell, the way that Shiloh put his Instagram story out, it felt a little more strategic, which more power to you. Luther Burden's felt a little more casual. Is that the case? I don't know, but that's the way that it felt to me. So if it's something you're leaning on, is getting a DM from a potential transfer, more power to you. But again, I don't think that's the most efficient way about it. I would have to believe that the coaching staff going and being the front-facing part of that would be the way to go about it. But then everything was directed back towards, well, what about Missouri? What about Luther Burden? Say the same things you said about Colorado as you would say about Missouri today. Here's the thing, man. Again, the issue is not the tweet. The issue is not the Instagram story. The issue, and I said this multiple times yesterday, I don't have a problem with the Instagram story. What I have a problem with is the functionality of it. The facts of the matter are the results are the results. Colorado went 4-8 last year, and they're not recruiting the high school level effectively. And currently, they don't have the roster they want to have. And I'm not saying that's the roster they're going to have long-term there at Colorado. I think if Deion Sanders is consistent and persistent, and quite frankly, if he starts making some in-home visits, that could change the whole game for them. But to eval Missouri the same way as we do Colorado is just lunacy. It makes zero sense. Missouri won 11 games last year and won the Cotton Bowl. I'm not going to speculate on Eli Drinkwitz the same way I'm going to speculate on Deion Sanders, because I know what Eli Drinkwitz is, man. He's won everywhere. He won at App State. He's built Missouri up in the toughest conference in America. The execution of tweeting out, hey, transfers DM me, I personally wouldn't do it, but I know that Missouri is doing things the right way internally. I still have questions about Colorado. We got coaches getting demoted, like I said yesterday, taking head coaching jobs somewhere else. That's a bad look. That's a bad look. Say what you want to say. Now, the transfer portal exodus right now, we're going to find out more about that, I think, here as these coming weeks go on. What I would say, though, is the context of all of this is key. Same thing with Lane Kiffin. He's surviving on the portal right now. Andy Staples had a great segment on his show this morning on the On3 YouTube channel about this. So another reason to be subscribed here. Make sure you're locked in. Lane Kiffin relies on the portal, and that's great. If Deion wants to rely on the portal, that's great. But if you don't get the results that you want to have, you should change your approach. Eli Drinkwitz, he makes home visits. Okay, I promise you, he's front-facing. He's talking with those kids in their living room. Deion Sanders refusing to do that. Again, to me, it's an execution thing. It's an approach thing. And it's one thing to have a different approach when it works. So far, you look at what Colorado is, it hasn't worked. And I'm not saying that's who they're going to be long-term. Again, Deion Sanders, the most charismatic individual probably on the face of the planet. Far be it for me to tell you he can't go and attract top talent and they can't start winning some football games. But if you're going to stand on this way of doing things, you got to start getting some results. It's a 4-8 football team last year. Massive improvement from the year before. I'm not defining Colorado right now, but if you want to define Missouri the same way as Colorado, look at the records, man. They're vastly different. The way they do things, vastly different. You can't say Luther Burden tweeted this out, Shiloh put this on his story, so they're the same situation. They're not. They're not. Okay? So with that being the case, I'm encouraged to hear what y'all are thinking on this. I'm encouraged to hear y'all's responses on the socials as well as in the comment section. But again, the thing I'll say here, Missouri, 11-win football team. Colorado, 4-win football team. Still very early. But let's not pretend that's apples to apples. It's just, it's not. I have no problem if you want to put that on the socials. If you want to go out and put it on your story, if you want to go and call to action for transfers to reach out to you, that's more than fine. No problem with it. But the Colorado picture, to me, adds to a lack of functionality. Missouri's felt a little bit more casual, and I'll leave it at that. Don't think we're going to get great responses to that, but it is what it is. It is what it is, man. We'll keep a good thing rolling. All right, we got spring games. Actual football being played, 11-11 football being played this coming Saturday. The second buffet for us. We had a nice little buffet last weekend. Closest thing we're going to get to a fall Saturday with Georgia playing, Alabama playing. We got a nice little round of action here this upcoming Saturday. What are we watching? What should we be watching for as it pertains to this upcoming spring Saturday? We got Texas playing some ball. The thing that I'm watching most closely with them, what does the chemistry look like between Quinn Ewers and those new transfer wide receivers, most specifically Isaiah Bond. Because Texas, when they were rolling last year, a lot of it was on the defense for sure, but I think also a big piece of what they did offensively last year was their playmakers on the outside just being the big dogs on whatever Saturday they chose. Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell combined for darn near 2,000 yards receiving together. I don't think it needs to be a finished product in the spring, but the thing I'm watching here, completion percentage. Hey, where's that ball for Quinn Ewers when he throws it to Isaiah Bond? Is it on the correct shoulder? Do they have the proper timing down? Is that chemistry where it needs to be when it gets to the fall? It's just a jumping off point, but Texas made the college football playoff last year in large part because they threw the ball for almost 300 yards a game. Have to believe it was a lot closer to 300 yards a game when Quinn Ewers was healthy because he wasn't for the duration of the season. Scored 35 points a game. What's the chemistry look like in Austin? Excited to watch that. Speaking of quarterback play, man, Florida State, the DJU era, about to get underway in Tallahassee. I'm very curious how comfortable he looks in that new system. Because with Florida State, man, it's not a quarterback battle from what I understand. It's not a thing where you're seeing if it's DJU or if it's somebody else. Like DJU is going to be the guy for you. So we're taking a temperature here of how comfortable he is getting from, first progression to second progression. Does he know where the check down is? Is he double clutching it? Is he taking a lot of sacks? Is he having to throw it away a lot? How comfortable is he operating within this system? If you're a Florida State fan, you'd like to see him have a day like Garrett Nussmeier where he makes good decisions, has no incompletions, goes the right places with the football. That's the thing I'm watching for. It's not the end-all, be-all. If he goes out there and completes half his passes, we're not out on DJU. It just means it's still going to take a little bit more time for him to get to the level he wants to operate at. But from what we're hearing out of camp in Tallahassee this entire spring is he's continued to trend upward and had a couple of strong scrimmages. So we'll see how that translates in the spring game. Different conversation at Michigan. At Florida State, you're rolling with DJU. At Michigan, right now, the betting favorite is probably Alex Orji. What does he look like in the spring game? Because I think however Alex Orji plays in the spring game, more than likely as a fan, dictates how you feel about the transfer portal. Like if Alex Orji goes out there 10 for 10, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, you're like, okay, think we got our guy. Or at the very least, you feel confident about rolling into game one with Alex Orji. If he goes out there and kind of struggles to throw the football to the correct spot and he has a turnover or two, you're like, it's good. I mean, I think he's going to be okay for us long term, but is okay winning a national championship as we've come to expect here at Michigan? I'm excited to watch that. I'm really excited to see how Alex Orji operates in the spring game because he's not going to be able to utilize one of the best parts of his game, which is him as a running threat, which is massive. Okay, so we're going to see him isolated as a passer, running this offense under Sharon Moore. It'll be exciting. Will tell us a lot here about the aspirations for Michigan in that transfer portal quarterback market. USC, a team we've touched on a couple of times throughout this show. Defensively, it's a new era. And I've said this a couple of times on the show when we talk about defenses in the spring, man. Like, take what you want from the spring. Take what you want. Like, we got Ohio State thudding up with their good on goods. Like they're not trying to get anybody hurt during the spring. So it's tough to really draw a great sample size with what they're going to bring to the table physically. But what I want to watch for USC is in this new scheme, are guys in position. And I don't mean in position pre-snap, though that's important too. I mean like when there's a play to be made, do we have somebody there to make that competitive play on the football? If you don't come down with it, that's ball, man. Like it's a competitor's game, but are you at least in position? Because there were multiple times last year for USC where they were superior personnel-wise, but they just were fitting things incorrectly. They were just a couple steps behind on certain plays, and it rubs you the wrong way if you're a defensive juggernaut, if you're a defensive fan of football, but even more so if you're a USC fan, you're like, we got better guys. We got more 4-stars than them. And not to dog Arizona State, but Arizona State comes to my mind specifically, like USC has better roster talent than Arizona State. And continually, they had guys that were out of position. Are they in position in this new defense? Because we've said it multiple times now, if USC can just be serviceable defensively, we'll see what USC is offensively this year. But if Lincoln Riley's running the show, you feel pretty confident about the way that things headed. Are they in position? And then also in the spring game, it'd be a bonus if you could see guys tackle well. If there's some missed tackles, you don't, pound the alarm necessarily, but I think you would like to see some guys get taken to the ground, effectively be in position. We're checking the pulse there defensively for USC. Notre Dame, offensively, no Riley Leonard. So we're not going to get to see the finished product of what they are this year. Obviously, in the spring game, you're not seeing the finished product regardless. How explosive do they look offensively? And I don't need to have multiple touchdowns of 50 yards or more, but Notre Dame has gone to the portal and upgraded how dynamic they're going to be at receiver. And they also brought in an offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, who led one of the most potent offenses in the country last year. Last year, Notre Dame, as they were pretty good for yards per pass, a lot of that, I have to believe, was off of the play action and getting the looks they wanted. They averaged 239 pass yards a game. I believe that's in the bottom third of the entire country. It's not bad. It's who they were last year. They were kind of more ground and pound, a little more pro style. I think they'll open it up a little bit more this year. Do we just have some more opportunities for separation? Even if I don't see it in the spring game where we're having, like I just said, those long touchdown passes and long touchdowns, period, do we see guys separate? Are the big plays there from what we can gauge? What's the overall tempo of that offense? That'll be a lot of fun to see. Last thing here I'm watching, Texas A&M, the Fighting Billy Lucci's. What do they look like operationally this first time out for Mike Elko and company? Because, I mean, we've had this discussion together a few times if you've tuned into this show. Like, A&M doesn't have a roster problem. Like, they're not trying to hit the portal super hard this upcoming spring, and they're not going to try and retool the whole roster. I'm sure they'll take some guys if they find the right fit, but A&M has good enough ingredients to be competitive in the SEC. Just the fact of the matter. Do they look like they are a more structured operation? And it's the spring game, so take of this as you'd like. I'm looking for turnovers. I'm looking for assignments being taken care of defensively, like no busted coverages, no messed up run fits, and perhaps most importantly, the most obvious example of a disciplined and structured team is what you do from a penalties perspective. Last year, Texas A&M, they'll play Notre Dame early, 80th in the country in terms of penalties per game. I'm not telling you that's a direct correlation to what the staff was doing or wasn't doing, but I think with a new staff, there will be a heavy emphasis on discipline, doing things the right way, and curious to see how that translates in the spring game. So tune in Sunday morning. We're going to have a ton of coverage for you. Okay, so all these teams I just mentioned, we will have an instant reaction from their spring game on this channel on Sunday morning. So subscribe so you don't miss it and come back and hang out with us for our Sunday sprint. And if you're new to the channel, we do that during the fall as well. We'll do close to, I'd say somewhere around 6 videos this Sunday. We do 10 plus when it comes to things during the fall. A lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, but I mean, it's college football. We really working? Not really. So about to get to the live chat here in just a matter of moments. Nick Brake going to join the show. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you all about the good folks bringing you the show today, the good people at Factor Meals. Delicious, ready-to-eat meals. And I understand now we're in April. A lot of us started the year now with the New Year's resolution of, hey, let's be a little bit healthier. Hey, I want to drop my 5 to 10 pounds. Hey, maybe I want to put on 5 to 10 pounds of lean muscle. Whatever goals you had to start the new year, a lot of it probably had to do with your dietary habits. Factor Meals helps us get that done. They got options on options. 35 different options a week, from keto to vegan to calorie smart. Factor Meals got you covered. We say this a lot on this show, man. Flexibility is one of your best abilities, okay? Availability, flexibility, but you got both with Factor Meals. Get as much or as little as you need. Could be 6 meals, could be 18 meals. You can pause it as well whenever you want to, okay? Or reschedule deliveries anytime you would like to. No prep required. Gets to your door, 100% ready to heat up. So go to factormeals.com/JD50 and use JD50 as your code to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box when your subscription is active. That's code JD50 at factormeals.com/JD50, 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box as long as your subscription is active. Appreciate the good folks at Factor Meals taking care of us, taking care of y'all. Roll, party, roll. Speaking of the party, how about the man making the whole party happen joining the show right now, Nick Brake? Nick, what's going on, brother? How we doing? Kickball last night, true or false?
Let's just not talk about kickball last night.
So we did or didn't have it?
We did. It wasn't that bad. We got beat by 5 runs. But
okay.
I was on third base. It was bases loaded, down 4, bottom 6, pop up.
Even Saban had a tough first year at Bama.
Well, that's what Dezu says. Said, Tom Brady's lost too. So
It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
What's going on in the chat today? We got some rambunctious activity in there?
We do. We're actually kind of chopping it up about the jerseys and uniforms in college football that we like.
No way. Okay, I like it.
What do you think about that?
I love it. What's the latest buzz in the chat about that? Who are we talking about?
Oh, too many to count.
Too many to count. Is there any specific? I mean,
Oregon, of course.
You got a favorite uniform, Nick?
I like Louisville's uniforms the best.
Dude, those are smooth.
All white.
They got a big time Adidas deal. You know what I'm excited for is the Auburn Nike deal they just signed, and how those new uniforms are going to look. I'll have to put it on the socials. We just got a brand new facelift when it comes to helmets for the studio. We got, Nick's leaning to show y'all that are listening, or that are watching rather live. Got Ole Miss. We got a black Miami helmet. We got the Florida State helmet. We got the Colorado helmet, Oklahoma. Like, we got some real players to the game here for the helmets. So we've had a fair discussion about which ones we're fans of from an optics perspective. Ole Miss is clean, dude. Like, I think seeing it in person, the baby blues.
Mm-hmm.
They go baby blue with the red jerseys. I'm a fan of the Ole Miss look. Classics are fun too, though. Like the Ohio State's. I think Ohio State's blackout uniforms are the standard for all black uniforms, personally.
Yeah, good point. And I am not on mute. I'm not falling.
Are they chirping?
Yes, I'm not going to fall for that again.
They're chirping. Dang. What are you going to do? You know?
There was a question earlier on in the day from The Truth that I'm going to get to.
I love it.
Said something about, like, your favorite defense that you've ever watched in college football and potentially your offense, too.
Favorite defense. That's so tough. It's funny because I think my favorite defense and favorite offense could easily be the same school. Favorite defense, I'm going to go LSU, Tyrann Mathieu, Honey Badge. Like, they were just so exciting, so disruptive. He was just must-see TV, I think, period, on that side of the football. So I'll go that LSU squad when he was there. I could say 2019 LSU for the offense with how potent they were. I'm going to go throwback here. I'm going to go Chip Kelly's Oregon Ducks when Jeremiah Masoli was there, when the spread option was kind of becoming a more in vogue thing in college football. He was so awesome on the read option because he was just a magician, Jeremiah Masoli was, on that mesh where he would ride it out through the mesh point with the running back, take off around the edge, and you had, like, it was a given like 2 or 3 times a broadcast, the camera would lose track of where Jeremiah Masoli was. Like, they would think the running back had the football. He's already around the edge going for 15, 20 yards and maybe a touchdown. So, like, those offenses were so fun, and that was, like, my first introduction, I think, into, like, the Oregon uniforms and the running quarterback. Like, that was a lot of fun. I'll name that one. Last team here, Reggie Bush and USC was fun, dude. Reggie Bush was so potent and so dynamic when he had the football in his hands. You just held your breath every time he ran. So I'll put Reggie Bush in that sweepstakes as well.
Okay. Very well said.
I see Sandman asking, what's Nick's greatest fear? Do we have a greatest fear that we want to save that for an in-season deal? I don't want to put you on the spot either. That's a big question.
Give me a minute.
That's a big question.
I can do that after the next question if I can think about it. Next question, by the way, is from Jordan C., who says, JD, what new stadiums will you be visiting this year? Or maybe potentially which ones do you want to visit this year, JD, since we don't know where we're going?
That's a great question. I'd love to get to Autzen because we just mentioned them. Death Valley at night is the stuff of legend. Like, you ask most college football fans that have been around the block a time or two, what's the best atmosphere? And they'll say LSU, Bama, at night, get there, make it happen. I believe they're going to play in Baton Rouge this year. Have to believe it's going to be a night game if the folks running the show are on their P's and Q's as they usually are. That'd be a big one. Love to get to the Swamp too, man. We haven't been to the Swamp, and that'd be phenomenal. Nebraska, getting out there to Lincoln to be a big one. So there's a lot of atmosphere still on the bucket list. The Penn State wideout, like we could probably do a whole show, at least a whole segment, naming places we'd like to get to just sample and be able to experience. Very fortunate to get to a few of them last year, but definitely have a few more on the hit list that we want to make happen. Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, enter Sandman. Would love to experience that. Notre Dame. I could keep going, so I'm going to stop myself. But yeah, there's a lot of them still out there on the list.
Sandman says my biggest fear is the mute button.
Dude, don't let them. Don't let them
Like,
do it.
Sandman, you literally put your address in this group chat. I deleted it to save you, and then you put it back. I'm not going to help you anymore.
You're drawing the line. You're a man
bully.
of principle. You're a man of every man's got a code.
Yep.
Every man's got a code.
Yep.
What do you say? One or two more?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It looks like we're going to go to OG Gary's question.
Let's go, Gary.
I don't know if you know about Utah's portal commits and signings. What do they got
I have to do a
going in
deep
there?
dive on that, man.
Yeah.
I have to probably go back to the drawing board and give you an informed answer. Let's see if we can find something really quick for our guy, though, on the transfer portal as it pertains to the Utes.
Yeah.
I do think if they could go out and get another weapon for Cam Rising, that would make a lot of sense. I'd love to see that. I think offensive weapons, period, for them would be nice to help Cam Rising. I understand they got the tight end back. He's healthy. So we'll circle back to Utah, but I think those are the two positions that I'd love to see them solidify a little bit more. And we say this a lot with Utah. Doesn't really matter who they have returning or not returning. They're kind of the same team. And that's not a slight. In fact, it's a positive that Kyle Whittingham has built a recruiting system that just continues to funnel in guys that they develop, and then they have massive success when they get to Utah. So how's that for an answer for our guy, Gary? We'll circle back on Utah at a later date when it comes to some other moves that they could make. We'll heck, when they land some more guys too, we'll talk about them for our guy, Gary. How's that sound?
Yeah. And Sandman says that was not his address. Daisy says that day in the chat was crazy. JD, man, sometimes you do miss the live chat because it is a lot of fun. You need to
Sounds like it, man. It sounds like I am missing out on a good amount of the action.
Yeah.
What do you say? One more to finish us up here?
Yeah.
Or we could also go for a break bite.
I don't have any
if you got any takes here, a break take to send us out onto the weekend, man, that would also be great.
Well, I will say this. I think we've got to talk about the people at Game Time before we get off the air today.
Do we?
We do.
Is that confirmed?
That's confirmed.
Okay.
So
we'll send them out with a Game Time.
How about we do that?
Beautiful. Nick Brake, appreciate you, brother. Good
See ya.
stuff. Rock and roll. As Nick just alluded to, the hard count also brought to you by our folks over at Game Time. Game Time, best tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. They're going to assist you in making sure that you don't get ripped off. Nobody likes to get ripped off. Don't let it happen with you. With Game Time is the best way to make sure that doesn't happen. Talking about ripped off with the best prices, you find a ticket in the same row or section for less Game Time. Guess what they do? Credit you 110% of the difference of what you paid for, okay? So that's a great deal. Also, Game Time, they make sure that you get the right seat when you're watching, okay? So if you are going to buy a ticket and you sit down behind a pole, it means you didn't buy on Game Time because Game Time will let you see the view from your seat before you purchase using the Game Time app. So here's what we're going to do. Download the Game Time app, redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Again, redeem code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT. Terms apply. Redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time. Best tickets, lowest prices. Guaranteed. Roll party roll. All right, well, hey, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us, man. It has been a wild week in the transfer portal. I'm sure there is more excitement on the horizon here. Make sure you're locked in on the socials at Judy Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. Want y'all to make sure you don't miss a minute of that. Final thing I'll say, I should have said this at the beginning of the show, but I'll say it again here. If you won our bracket pool on the tournament challenge, get at me on Instagram. I believe the DMs are open on Instagram, so get at me on there and let me know with proof that you won. I know who won, so get at me on there and send me a direct message, and we'll get you taken care of, all right? Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all